Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're starting right off with our guest this morning because we have an exciting topic to talk about, and I just learned about this, so you're going to have to fill me in. Tell me about the Veggie Van.
So the Veggie Van, it's pretty much just a van or a vehicle that goes to different parts of Steuben County and provides produce to people in need. You can pay in various forms, including Farmers Market Nutrition Program coupons, which is actually, it's hard to find places that accept those coupons.
Sure.
So we're really excited about having that service.
And how did you get those ways to pay? Do you have to sign up for that?
You have to sign up to do the training for the Farmers Market Nutrition Program checks, which Kyle has done.
Yes.
So
Kyle, tell us about your involvement with the Veggie Van.
So I'm Kyle Lowry, and with Lowry Family Farms, and the big thing about it is we grow produce on our farm. We're spray-free, chem-free. We also grow beef, pork, and chicken. We're located between Campbell and Savona, and it's one of those things where I think this pairs great, is getting out in the community and being able to service folks, because they use a lot of time buzzwords such as food desert, but that's all relative. People have different life situations, don't have transportation, so we love to try to help that with our different sites. We're also open in Campbell 9 to 6 during the week and 9 to 5 on the weekend. So if you can't make it, you can still, use your Farmers Market Nutrition coupons or your Fresh Connect coupons as well.
How long has the Veggie Van been going on?
this is our second year,
Is that-
and
oh,
we've
okay.
expanded quite a bit.
Okay. Tell us, how did you expand?
We were able to get more sponsors, so we have
okay.
Excellus, the Corning Foundation, Office for the Aging, and then us, Cornell Cooperative Extension, we sponsored as well.
And how was Cornell involved?
So we were the ones who actually came up with the idea. I've always wanted to do some kind of a veggie van, and it's been done in other places, but to purchase a vehicle, to have refrigeration for all of the produce,
Sure.
to have a staff member, it was going to be over 6 figures. So we were like, well, why not just have a farmer do it?
Look at all that.
And I know, why not just have a farmer go and do it himself and make sure that they can accept everything and help them through that. And we did it really quickly last year. It was just Kyle bought in, which was awesome.
That's great.
He was able to do the idea with us. He believed in us, which I appreciate very much, and it actually worked.
Yeah.
We did it for less than $8,000, and it worked. And we're expanding this year. Now we have 2 farmers that are doing it.
What has the reaction been from people that visit the Veggie Van?
You want to answer that one?
I think the reaction's great, being in the community. There are areas where it's a little bit difficult, to get out. And I think the idea, and also people like to connect, a person with someone who's growing the food.
Right.
I think that's important. You stop by, you get one of these great tote bags as well.
This is the whole reason I did the interview. I wanted all this.
We got lots of great information, as far as recipes and things like that. Because the whole thing is freshness isn't, some people take it for granted, and the idea of, how do you cook a head of cabbage? What do you do with fresh broccoli? Like how do you incorporate these foodstuffs into your diet?
And you mentioned the food deserts and things like that. That's what I like about the Veggie Van. You're going all over, and I'm going to show it here on screen in just a moment, but you're going all over to even maybe what you'd say smaller communities like a Woodhull, for instance. And I think that's important. Don't you think? I mean, for people to have that opportunity to get, because you mentioned before, it's spray-free, chemical-free, so this is healthy.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things that our community is very vibrant. I think when a lot of people think of the Finger Lakes, they think of big agriculture. They think of grapes. But there's a lot of great produce grown here. There's a lot of other folks. I know they have the market right here in Corning on Thursdays.
Right.
There's a lot of exciting things going on, and it's letting people know in the community, what's available.
Right. Can you stay with me? I got to take a short break, okay? Sure. All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us. Here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program because we are talking about the Veggie Van. How long does the Veggie Van run?
So it runs from tomorrow, so it starts, and then it finishes at the end of September, so it's 12 weeks.
And what goes into your picks each week, Kyle? Like, it's just what's ready?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Back to my show and tell.
I love it.
It's kind of one of those things. Like right now, we've got cabbage, we've got broccoli. We're starting to pick garlic.
Oh, wow.
Tomatoes, peppers. Here in a couple weeks, we'll have corn.
Okay.
It's one of the things that and it's also a requirement of the program. Everything that we have is either grown by us or a neighboring farm.
Okay.
You're not going to find bananas or lemons.
Right.
And those type of items aren't
Sure.
covered under the Farmers Nutrition Program coupons, because the whole thing that our state of New York here and Governor Hochul tries to do is to provide the freshness that's from our community.
Sure.
Because this is a type of program where everybody wins.
How long has Lowry Family Farms been around?
Oh, so we've been farming in Savona since 1997.
Okay.
Our farm was actually on the Underground Railroad. It was
interesting.
Our house was built in 1797. So we've been around for quite a while, and it's really exciting to be able to work the land and be part of our community.
Have you been farming your whole life then?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, how's the season this year?
So it's one of those things. When you go hot and dry,
Right.
It kind of makes it difficult. It's a bizarre year in the fact that we've had both issues with insects, and with fungal on the leaves.
Okay.
So it makes it kind of difficult, and especially because we're spray-free, chemical-free.
Right.
It makes managing those things a little bit more challenging, but that's what makes it all worthwhile.
How much more difficult is it, and how much more of an investment is it when you are spray-free, chemical-free?
I guess the big thing. The big difference is time. I mean, we honestly plan everything by hand, so we're not very mechanized.
Right.
Is that necessarily as efficient as other folks? No. And could we necessarily grow it currently on as big a scale as some? Probably not. Agriculture is great because there are so many different tools, and with mechanization and those things. So we're not saying anything's difficult. We're just our whole thing is we want to give everybody a choice.
Sure. How do you keep your passion for farming? Because I can tell when we talk, right? I mean, even off the air, that you obviously have a passion for it.
Well, it's one of those things for me is that obviously we have to make an income to be able to keep the lights on.
Sure.
Got to keep gas in the tank and things like that. But I genuinely have a passion to feed people. Because it's one of those things. It's a basic necessity that sometimes people don't think about and take for granted.
Hey, you do take it for granted, don't
so
you?
to be able to impart that in the community, anywhere from the old to the young, and watch people's eyes light up is great.
Yeah, and that must be really rewarding for you when the veggie van pulls up and you get to see the people.
Oh yeah.
And I like that we mentioned it, and I want to just touch on it. But you offer recipes too, because I think it can be overwhelming for people that aren't used to eating healthy, right? I mean, how do you cook broccoli? Some people don't like. I like broccoli, so that was a bad example. But like that's got to help people eat better and be healthier.
So that's something that's great about the Veggie Van is there's a lot of nonprofits that will table there, and they also bring the recipes. Sometimes they'll check with Kyle first on
Sure.
what he's having out on the table. You also have a lot of great recipes on your social media too.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you go to Lowry Family Farms on Facebook and Instagram, you will see that I'm always constantly trying to pull recipes, trying to pull things, because it's one of those things. If you don't know how to cook a spaghetti squash,
Right.
it can be kind of daunting. You're like, hey, what the heck is this? Sometimes I go out of my way to challenge people,
Yeah.
different things.
Do you have a favorite recipe?
That's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a traditionalist, so I'm a big like broccoli and cheese guy, things like that. What about you, Tess?
I love Brussels sprouts.
Oh yeah,
boy.
I love Brussels sprouts too. That's rare.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So many people seem to. Well, to me, it's just like cabbage, and I love cabbage. Right.
One of the really fun basic things that you can do is you can take a real easy recipe. You take cauliflower, you break it off into florets, oil on your pan, a little bit of seasoning, throw it in the air fryer.
Wow.
You can literally, and the nice part about cauliflower is it complements any flavor. So if you like taco seasoning for Taco Tuesday, you
Right.
can make
Interesting.
taco flour tacos. So it's just something a little bit different.
I'm getting hungry. It's only 7 o'clock in the morning. These sound delicious. So, how did you decide, or why did you decide to get involved with this, Kyle?
Well, because I think it's one of those things, especially being a member of the under 40 crowd, it's going to become our responsibility to run our communities.
Right.
If we don't step up, who will?
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. We talk about that so often on the program, and I bring up this poll where people are kind of losing faith in community. and not wanting to get involved in the community. That's why I love doing interviews like this, because again, using that term, you show your passion for it, right? And you are helping out the community with the Veggie Van. So so last year, so this is the second year, is it growing in popularity?
We've had a
You
lot
hope.
more. We've had a lot more presence on social media, and we did pick locations this year based on how well the Veggie Van did last year. So
Okay.
there are some that we aren't doing again this year, but there are some that did really well, like Avoca and Addison, that we are doing again this year.
Where can people find out more about the Veggie Van?
So you can find it on any of our social media, so Cornell Cooperative Extension Steuben or Lowry Family Farms.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can also find it on our website.
Is it open to anyone? Because I know we were talking out there, and Office for the Aging's involved, and so many groups are involved. Who can participate in the Veggie Van?
Everyone.
Absolutely everyone.
And I want to go
Love
back
to
to
see you there.
your point, whether we mentioned earlier, because I'm going to show the times here in just a moment and the days, but it's really not limited to those times, you're saying.
No, it's one of those things. Through New York State, there are a variety of farm markets and producers that have like Lowry Family Farms. We're 8295 Route 415, Campbell, New York, and we're open 9 to 6 during the week and 9 to 5 on the weekend.
Okay.
So if our times don't quite fit your schedule, there are always other options.
So I want to make sure to show that, because I keep promising that I'm going to. So let's put up those are the locations, and those are the times there on your screen. So just before we go, what should people know about the Veggie Van? Because I think, like myself, we're just learning about it for the first time. What should people know?
We just really want you to come and get some produce from our two farmers. So we have Kyle from Lowry Family Farms, and we also have Cameron from Spice of Life Farms.
Okay. I love that it's growing that quickly, and that you got involved, and I know I keep mentioning it, but it's such an important part for our community to have this. It's really an opportunity, because where else can you go where you can get fresh vegetables like this? It's kind of a struggle sometimes, isn't it?
Well, and also, for example, when you go there, as I said, we'll have different resources, people tabling with us, but it's just me. It's not daunting like a farmer's market, where you have all these booths and you have to walk around, especially for people, that maybe have a disability or don't do well in crowds. This is kind of a single interaction. It's low stress.
That's a great point.
And we're there every week, so it's one of those things where before it was on a rotating cycle, where we'd hit a variety of locations. But now, it's consistent. We can build a relationship with you. So
Great. Well, I can't thank you guys enough for number one, doing this for the community, but also being on the program this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We've got to take a short break. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I love when we start the program right off with our guests. I really appreciate them being in on the show and telling us more about the Veggie Van. So I do not want to forget. There it is. There are all the locations for the Veggie Van. What an interest. First of all, I made out like a bandit. Did you see how much vegetables he brought me? That is not why I did the interview. I was joking, but I think it's an amazing opportunity. And as I keep talking about with community on this program, as a matter of fact, we might get to that in just a moment. We received a lot of emails during the weekend responding to some of the programs that we've had on the air and some of the topics. One of those is community involvement. And I thought it was a very good point from our the viewer who wrote in. I'm not sure if I have that, if I'm going to have that up on the screen, though. Okay, so here's our first comment, because we were talking about, would you encourage a young person to join our military? Would you encourage them to become law enforcement? Because there's, so much bad media right now. We heard that some are not joining the military because of this new woke culture, and there's a real need. And of course, if you weren't paying attention from over the weekend, the president decided to tell everybody on national TV that we're running low on ammunition, which is probably not something you want telegraphed to the whole world. But the reason I mention it is this person wrote in, it's a tough question to ponder. It's yet extremely important and urgent, in my opinion. It actually was and is quite disturbing and depressing to think about. I feel that law enforcement is absolutely paramount to a civilized society. But when your hands are tied by insane rules, rendering yourself and the citizens vulnerable to violence, I couldn't encourage it. But how frightening is that scenario? And then bail reform is another disaster. That's a very good point on numerous fronts. And that's the problem. We're not discouraging people from doing it. It's the media, the politicians that are discouraging people from getting involved in law enforcement or getting involved in the military. And specifically in New York State, where you have bail reform, you have so many examples of law enforcement having their hands tied while we coddle the criminal. As a matter of fact, do you remember, I didn't know I was going to get on this topic necessarily, but do you remember the rapper 50 Cent? Probably didn't expect me to bring him up on the program, but he spoke out over the weekend in regards to Los Angeles having a no bail policy, which is essentially what we have in New York. And he said, LA is finished. Watch how bad it gets out here. Shaking my head. And the only reason I mention that is because that's what we've been dealing with. That's why Lee Zeldin did so well against Governor Hochul. Obviously, he didn't win. It's a very Democrat state, but he did so well because he was talking about public safety. And let's face it, New Yorkers want to feel safe. New Yorkers don't want to fear for their or their families' lives because of these disastrous policies coming out of Albany. We're going to actually talk, I think it's this week, maybe next, with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We'll talk about that as well, because it's very frustrating, as you know, for New York residents. And I'm tying that all together because we're just jumping around everywhere. That's right. But no, because I received those great emails, and you can always contact me. I have a few more that I hope to get to here in just a little bit. We do have to take a short break, but you can contact me, and I will attempt. I can't always guarantee, but I will attempt to mention it on the program because we had a couple other ones as well. So I feel like we're running quick this morning. It's already 22 after, so stay with us. We got to take another short break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. We are back, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thanks again to our guests. I know we started the program off with them. I don't always do that. We wait a few moments, but they were here, and I want to make sure that they could go back to work, specifically with Lowry Family Farms. We were talking about the veggie van. Don't miss out on it. So we're talking about the importance of community, and that was one of the main topics, really, talking with our guests this morning. And that's why I wanted to mention viewer email. This coming from over the weekend. Let me see if I got the right one up. I guess the bottom line, and this is about community involvement. I would like to be more involved, but it's uncomfortable in certain situations. And my last attempt left me feeling really alone. So it makes it hard to participate for me, wondering what others' experiences are. Yes, I would open that up, and I understand really what this person is saying, because I have the whole email here, is because so many things have become political. You get involved in an organization and maybe they don't have the same beliefs as you do, or maybe they are too politically active in one way or another. And I think it's a very good point. That's why you have to pick and choose what charities you get involved in, or great causes like we talk about the Veggie Van this morning. I know I've mentioned this on the program before. I'm on the Salvation Army of Corning. You have to look at groups and organizations that are in line with your beliefs, and that can be very difficult. And I can understand sometimes organizations become cliquey or become again, political, so it can leave people with a bad taste in their mouth. But I would say, do not get discouraged. There is an organization, a charity that is right for you to get involved, because we can't give up. I mean, we talk about public safety, we talk about how bad the decisions out of Albany are. We can't give up on New York. Now, many of you may have already. The polls show that many people have a 5-year plan of when they want to eventually leave the state, or many of you may know a family member or friend that has left the state, but I don't feel like we can give up. I feel like we still have to keep fighting and do the best we can to change our little slice of the earth. And that's why I'm getting on my high horse on that this morning. But that's why I was so refreshed to hear from Kyle with Lowry Family Farms talk about the community aspect to the Veggie Van. So let me put that back up there, because I think it is important for everyone to get involved. Let me see if I can find the right one. There we go. The Veggie Van returns. So those are all the dates, and I'm going to talk here for just a moment while you have time to look down the list and see if there's any that suits you. But like he said, you can always just visit Lowry Family Farms as well. And I really made out good. I don't know if you can see it on TV. He brought me a lot of great things, so I appreciate our guests being on the program this morning. Okay, let's get to some news of the day. I've kind of been jumping around. As always, you can contact me at any time during the program. You can see the number on the bottom of the screen there where it says text, TXT. That's the number where you could call. You can text me, obviously. Leave a voicemail if you do call. I don't know why I found this story funny. I don't know if funny is the right word, but I think I followed this a little bit more closely than I probably should, and that is the trials and tribulations of Kim Jong-un. He has now earned himself an unflattering nickname because he has such a massive appetite for European booze, food. And according to his chef, he is a boozer. He drinks Black Label Scotch whiskey and Hennessy brandy, and he's a heavy smoker. So what is his new nickname, you're wondering? They now call him the Fat One. That's what it would translate to, the Fat One. He is obviously grossly overweight. Indeed, a nickname for him, the Fat One. I don't know why. 300 pounds, they say he's up to, by the way. And he's been hoarding insomnia medications. Why I decided to make that a part of the story, I have no idea. Another part of the program this morning, another big story is this, and that is Ben and Jerry. Some are comparing them to Bud Light because Ben and Jerry virtue signaled over the July 4th weekend. Well, according to David Hookstead at Outkick, he says that a Native American tribe in Vermont is demanding Ben & Jerry return their land after the July 4th message. Instead of celebrating America like the rest of the country, the woke ice cream company decided to spend Independence Day attacking the USA and claiming the country exists on stolen land. Ben & Jerry's demanded land be returned to Native American people. Well, it might be time for them to put their money where their mouth is, because I'm going to try here. The Coosac Abenaki National Chief, Don Stevens, informed Newsweek he's very interested in getting the land Ben & Jerry's headquarters is on because it originally belonged to his tribe. He told the publication the tribe was, quote, always interested in reclaiming the stewardship of our lands. As of Friday, the company has not reached out to Stevens to start that process, and that's a different piece than what you see up there on the screen, and that's coming from Bob McManus. That heart attack pushers Ben & Jerry's hippie Indian land hypocrisy. Kind of an interesting piece, so you can find it at the New York Post. Let me be frank, he said. Here's an enterprise that for going on 50 years has now been peddling clogged arteries, diabetes, and morbid obesity. Nobody's forcing anyone to eat anything, for sure. But Ben & Jerry's has no grounds for moral preening. Plus, there's this. Ben & Jerry made themselves a bundle. They created the premium ice cream industry, and good for them. Then they sold out to Unilever, an international conglomerate with a market valuation of $128.6 billion as of Friday, for a cool $326 million in cash. That's what Ben & Jerry made. And they used some of the proceeds to support the Occupy Wall Street demonstrators of 2011. Can you spell hypocrite? There you go. So there's a lot of pushback there. We're going through a lot of stuff this morning. A lot of stuff you may not be hearing elsewhere. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Biden administration. We already have to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We have a lot to cover. Thank you again to our guests who started the program off bright and early this morning. We were talking about the Veggie Van, which begins tomorrow. So I appreciate Tess and Kyle for coming in on the program. On tomorrow's show, we're going to be talking the 11th annual Bucket Brigade Ride with John Conrad. He's the representative there. He's going to talk with us. The Bucket Brigade Ride is this Saturday. Sign-in is from 8 till 9:30, and the ride begins at 10 a.m. It's just $15 per person, and all donations benefit the Wounded Warrior Project. For more information, call 684-4703. And then on Wednesday, you may have seen the book in the corner of my desk. On Wednesday, I'm really excited about this. We're going to be talking with Tony Pucci. He's the author of The Uninvited, and that's a Michael Bishop mystery. If you have not checked out these Michael Bishop books, they are fantastic. Tony comes out with one almost every year, I think, maybe a little bit more than that, more frequently. There's something very addicting about those, so we really look forward to talking with Tony. I haven't seen him in a long time. He's going to come in on the program on Wednesday. So that's just an idea of how jam-packed this week is going to be on Frankly Speaking. Okay. I had hinted towards this story a little bit earlier on in the program. So I want to go to our screen so you can see it for yourself. The president let it slip during a live interview that we are running short on ammunition. This is a war relating to munitions. And they're running out of that ammunition, and we're low on it, he said during an interview with Fareed Zakaria on CNN. And so what I finally did, I took the recommendation of the Defense Department to not permanently, but to allow for the transition period while we get more 155 weapons, these shells for the Ukrainians. As Logan Dobson said, love when the President of America goes on CNN to tell everyone we're low on ammunition. Steve Gass tweeting out, Joe Biden broadcasting to the world that the U.S. is low on 155 millimeter shells. Does Biden not care that our adversaries in China are listening? No, I don't think he does. So many people weighing in, very similar. It's obviously a threat to national security. The military has, the White House walked it back, as normally the case when Joe Biden does an interview or gives some type of statement. The military has specific requirements for the number of weapon systems and ammunitions we maintain in our reserves in case of contingencies or military conflict. Everything we send to Ukraine is in excess of that. So the U.S. is not running out of ammunition ourselves, As political commentator Ian Miles said, Joe Biden wasn't supposed to say the quiet part out loud. We've run out of ammunition. But now that the cat's out of the bag, one must ask whether continued support of Ukraine's military is even feasible as the conflict rages on. And yes, some saying that the point was to weaken Russia, and it looks as if all this has done is weaken the U.S. as we ran out of, or are running out of ammunition. Newt Gingrich saying over the weekend on Fox News that this administration is enormously dangerous. Maria Bartiromo asked Newt Gingrich, Newt, let me get your take on the field. Who has what it takes in 2024 to deal with communist China? And what do you think this meeting with Janet Yellen tells us? So Newt said, the Biden administration is either corrupt or lives in a fantasy land. In either case, it's dangerous to the United States. If Yellen actually believes what she's saying, she's in a total fantasy land. And when I watch, for example, the Secretary of State, who'd been paid, I think, over $1 million a year by the University of Pennsylvania, with money which I think came directly from communist China, I'm not particularly reassured. So I think whether it's on a fantasy front or a corruption front, the Biden administration is enormously dangerous to the survival of America and an enormous asset in the creation of Chinese communist dominant system. I think it's enormously difficult. And when I talk about the threat, the real threat of China frequently on this program, and I think going back to that one commentator's point, I think it's a very good point, that when the President of the United States goes on TV and says we're running low on ammunition, what kind of message does that send to China? Same with our disastrous pullout from Afghanistan. These kind of things send a message to our adversaries that there is a weakness there. Now, Biden has doubled down, and he is refusing to meet Netanyahu because of quote-unquote extreme cabinet members. Okay. Biden said in March that he would not invite Netanyahu to the White House because of his government's attempt to reform Israel's powerful judiciary. Reforms, by the way, that largely parallel existing practices in the United States. But now we find out that he will not meet with Netanyahu on his trip. We're going to talk a little bit about the cocaine in the White House. We're going to talk about some other opinion pieces regarding President Biden. There's a few things here if we have a chance to talk about the presidential election. And I have a couple of New York State issues that we definitely have to get to. But as I said, this show is running very, very quickly. This morning, we're trying to cover as much as we possibly can. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, don't go anywhere. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. You probably know this name, Dan Bongino, a political commentator. I think he had a television show for a while. He used to be a Secret Service member, so he's a veteran of the Secret Service. He said, and I quote, "There's absolutely zero chance anyone other than a family member brought that cocaine inside the White House complex. No chance that would make it past the MAG and security checkpoints. Family bypasses those." Interesting. So we don't really have any updates on that. It seems as if the media's already laid the groundwork to say, well, it's done with. Now, luckily, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is seeking answers on this. The presence of illegal drugs in the White House is unacceptable and a shameful moment in the White House's history. Congress funds White House security procedures, and GOP oversight has oversight jurisdiction over Secret Service operations. I'm requesting a briefing. So we'll find out more where that goes. At least he's not letting it die off. That's what the media wants. Politico, really, I want to say it was probably the first day, second day, saying, well, we'll never really get to the bottom of whose cocaine it was in the White House. So I'm glad that Representative Comer is not willing to accept that line of reasoning from Politico, that, well, we're supposed to throw up our hands and say there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, just from a security aspect, if something like that can be found in the White House, shouldn't we be concerned about what else could make it past security? He also continued, Comer, "The alarming development requires the committee to assess White House security practices and determine whose failures led to an evacuation of the building and finding of the illegal substance. The committee requests the U.S. Secret Service provide additional information." How am I doing on time? I'm doing just fine. Also, since we're talking about Biden, we're going to wrap up on that. There is a really interesting piece at the New York Times called "It's 7 Grandkids, Mr. President." It's by Maureen Dowd, and she talks about her sister, who's a Republican, and how outraged her sister and her were about Biden ignoring Hunter's child. So we know that the president has 7 grandchildren, but he only frequently mentions 6. She said, "I was surprised when I discovered my sister writing a letter to President Biden, a plea that she had started in the middle of the night after mulling over the matter for quite a while. Quote, I watched as you told the nation that you had 6 grandchildren and you loved each one of them. I believe that. What I cannot believe and what I find unconscionable is that you refuse to admit or accept the fact that there's a beautiful little 4-year-old girl living in Arkansas by the name of Navy Joan, who is your 7th grandchild. She, and this is to the letter that she was writing to the president. She has the Biden blood running through her veins. And all she is going to have is a reminder of that are some of Hunter's original paintings. Sounds like a lousy trade-off, if you ask me. Yeah, I think this is an issue. The New York Times has actually surprisingly been covering this more than you would expect. And I think this, and as Maureen Dowd says in this, both her and her sister agree on this. And I think this is something that when people are paying attention, it is something that outrages them. Because obviously this girl did nothing wrong, but yet she's being ostracized by the family, not even mentioned by her grandfather. And as Maureen Dowd says, and I think it's a good point, there will be plenty of schoolmates to remind her that she wasn't wanted. Kids can be mean that way. That's a good point. Obviously, in the news, kids can be cruel, right? My sister and I often disagree about politics, Maureen Dowd says, but this is not a political issue to us. It's a human one. Joe Biden's mantra has always been that the absolute most important thing is your family. Yeah, and that's what he plays on. We talked about it in the past on the program, I think on Friday, that, that kind of folksy grandfather. but now they're having political meetings on how to best handle this situation. It's tragic. It is the heart of his political narrative that, family is everything. Empathy, born of family tragedies, has been his stock in trade, callously scarring Navy's life just as it's getting started undercuts that. As Katie Rogers, a Times White House correspondent, wrote in a haunting front page piece last weekend about Hunter's unwanted child. And that's what I'm saying. The New York Times actually covering this because I think it is so outrageous. Biden is so sensitive that only the president's most senior advisors talk to him about his son. Rogers said that in strategy meetings in recent years, aides have been told that Biden has 6, not 7 grandchildren. Joe Biden dedicated her 2020 children's book to 6 grandchildren. But the president can't defend Hunter on all his other messes and draw the line at accepting one little girl. You can't punish her for something she had no choice about. The Bidens should embrace the life Hunter brought into the world, even if he didn't consider her mother, quote, the dating type. The president's cold shoulder and heart is counter to every message he has sent for decades. It's out of sync with what America wants and how he continues to lead. We've got to take a short break. Stay with us. Plenty left to talk about. And we're just getting ready to wrap up. Wow, this show is going very, very fast. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking. As you see, I'm having a little technical difficulty. That's why I'm looking over at that other computer screen. But thank you for joining us. I'm Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Hey, I just heard about this. Representative Nick Langworthy, our congressman, was appointed to the Canada-United States Interparliamentary Group by Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He said, I'm honored to serve on the Canada-United States Interparliamentary Group, which plays a vital role in maintaining our robust bilateral ties. This platform will enable me to promote economic growth and fully capitalize on the vast opportunities that exist with our northern neighbors. I look forward to representing the interests of New York's 23rd District in these important discussions. And adding on to that about New York and New York Republicans specifically, did you see how much Representative Stefanik raked in $2 million in the latest round of fundraising? That tops out at $5 million so far this year. Elise Stefanik pulled in $2 million in the second quarter of 2023 for her own campaign, raised $1 million for other candidates, and transferred $1 million to the National Republican Congressional Committee. The unabashed Trump supporter, as it says here, from New York, upstate New York, increased her total for this year to $5 million after she raised $13.4 million in 2020 and $9.2 million in 2023. She said, quote, New York delivered the Republican majority in 2022 and will decide the House majority in 2025. I'm incredibly grateful for the hundreds of thousands of donors and supporters across upstate New York and the country who are supporting our effort to save New York and save America. Tying in with that, just quickly, there is a piece at the Times-Union, I believe it was. Fred LeBrun writes, Reparations Commission is a tricky needle to thread. We talked about this on the program a couple weeks ago. Obviously in Albany, they voted to start this reparations conversation, hearings on it. And basically what he does is he highlights exactly what we've been saying on the program, that it was a disaster in California when they did it. Really became a headache for Gavin Newsom. And all it does at this politically charged time is divide our state even further, creates an even worse scenario where people, again, it is a politically contentious time, and this is a very political, contentious issue. But we've got to take another short break, and then we're going to wrap up here on Frankly Speaking, so please stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and I'm your host, Frank Acom. Before we wrap up here, I wanted to mention the one line in the Fred LeBrun article called Reparations Commission is a tricky needle to thread. He said, I would posit that requiring such discourse by state mandate at this tender, highly polarized moment might set back race relations in New York because it would be neither rational nor reasonable and probably just plain vile, particularly since the very premise of financial reparations for descendants of slaves 200 years after slavery ended in New York is hotly contested by, I would guess, a significant majority of New Yorkers as well as the nation. We are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I want to thank our guests, and I want to put that back up on the screen because we were talking about the Veggie Van, and those are the locations. So thank you to Tess, and thank you to Kyle for being in on the program and bringing me those great vegetables, and Kyle's with Lowry Family Farms. This is a great opportunity for you to get some fresh, spray-free, chemical-free vegetables. So there are the locations and the times, or as Kyle mentioned, you can go to Lowry Family Farms at your convenience. On tomorrow's program, we will be talking with John Conrad about the 11th annual Bucket Brigade Ride, which is this Saturday. Sign in from 8 till 9:30 with the ride beginning at 10 o'clock, and it's just $15 per person. We'll find out all about that on tomorrow's program. And then on Wednesday, Tony Pucci, he's the author of the new book, The Uninvited, a Michael Bishop mystery. He's a local author. I love the Michael Bishop series, so I'm really looking forward to talking to Tony on Wednesday. That is it. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll be back tomorrow morning with Frankly Speaking right here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, have a great day, and we'll see you then.